Hello everyone and welcome to this episode of the Spiced In Podcast. My name is Jacob and today we're going to be talking about the newest episode of Star Wars The Clone Wars, Season 7, Episode 6, Deal No Deal. So, just to kind of, go over what I've been up to Star Wars wise recently. I finished Rebels thanks to work from home, and to be honest, I liked it a lot more than I expected. I think I've talked about it a little bit, but I think I connect with it more than Clone Wars just because we have a continuous story rather than kind of an anthology series. I like the characters as a whole, I think a lot more. I really like the crew. So it was easier for me to follow along, and even the kind of dry filler episodes that didn't offer a whole lot, I enjoyed having those more in Rebels rather than the Clone Wars, just because, again, I connected with the characters more. So I was willing to put up with that kind of stuff. So I think I'm probably going to talk about my general thoughts on the episode soon, about a month from now, and the reason for that is I think I mentioned I've read Rise of Kylo Ren, the 4-issue arc by Charles Soule. And I'm going to be talking about one issue per week in addition to the Clone Wars episode for that week. I just want to kind of space it out a little bit. Otherwise, I'm going to have like 1 hour and a half episode and then go straight back to like 18-minute episodes. So we're just kind of space it out. And so we'll be doing that starting with issue 1 today. I haven't gotten too far into the Rise of Skywalker novel. I've probably only read like 20 pages. I've just been, hooked on Animal Crossing like a lot of people. So... but I'm going to be on the road. I'm doing some inspection work this week. I'm working from home for the most part, but I do sort of work in a necessary field, or an essential field, I guess. So I do have to do a little field work this week. So when I'm sitting in my hotel room for a night, I think I'm just there for one night, I'll try and get some more reading done, see if I can knock out 100 pages or so. If I do 4 issues of Rise of Kylo Ren, then maybe an episode of my Rebels overview, and then I'll hopefully be ready to talk about the novel by then, which it'll be a little old at that point, but I'm not exactly flying to get those hungry eyes or ears, I suppose, right at the start or at the launch of something. So we'll get there when we get there. It's not like I'm going to be crazy late or anything, but anyways. So, yeah, like I said, we're going to talk a little about the Rise of Kylo Ren. Now, this is a 4-issue arc by Charles Soule, who is also a main writer on the High Republic initiative. But it's telling this origin story of Kylo, how he becomes Kylo Ren from Ben Solo, and this was released shortly after the movie. So, the whole arc is out. I believe it comes out in trade paperback in May, I'm pretty sure. But it's all on, it's all out there. If you can go to your local comic book store, safely, if they're doing like a curbside pickup or something like that, you can pick it up there. Although I know this was very popular, so who knows how easily you're going to be able to find floppies. If all else fails, if you want to stay safe, you can get Comixology issues of that. And that's what I did. This is my first time using Comixology. I used to be a big comic book reader, but I kind of fell off over the past year. So this is my first time doing digital, and it was a nice experience. I definitely prefer hard copies, and I think I'm going to try and go get back into floppies weekly with the High Republic. But for now, this was I enjoyed it, and it's nice to have it readily available. Comixology, it's an Amazon company, not sponsored, would be sponsored. So yeah. Anyways, so we're going to hop right into issue 1 of 4. We're starting off on a frost planet with this shirtless, heavily scarred masked man kneeling down. He says, "I am called Ren, but that is not my name." He's introducing himself to a pair of brothers whose group has been looking for. We kind of pan out, pull back, and see a huge battle behind him between the Knights of Ren that we know and the sector security for this area of the galaxy. Ren tells the boys that he knows that they've killed a lot, and he can make them a Knight of Ren. He says he heard even one of them could touch the shadow, and he levitates a lightsaber in his hand as a demonstration. As we can obviously tell, this is, his way of interpreting the Force. He calls it touching the shadow. And one of them says, that he can touch the shadow and he will follow them. But Ren tells him he won't follow them. He will follow the Ren. Which, a little confusing. He calls his lightsaber the Ren. So they're following his lightsaber, his blade. He turns it on and he tells the boy. And he also starts to grab the blade a little bit, and as it sears his hand. This dude definitely is a little bit masochistic, probably. But anyways, he tells the boy if he wants to join them, they must give him a good death. And although the boy says again he's killed hundreds, that's not how this works. He has to give him a sacrifice, and in this case his brother. But before he can do it, the second brother kills the first brother and asks him to join. However, the second brother is not the one who can touch the shadow, so he cannot be a Knight of Ren. So Ren, again, sorry for, it's Ren, a lot of Ren, but Ren strikes him down. I guess the person, also the lightsaber. He talks with his knights and tells them not to worry. He says the master will find them another member soon enough. So now they must go find something to burn. Quick, crazy, violent intro. But we cut away from there to Ben Solo in a familiar scene, him down in front of the burning Jedi temple set up by Luke Skywalker. Above, a ship comes in and observes the chaos. It's a kind of strange looking ship. The cockpit looks like a Y-wing, and like half of the rear looks like an X-wing. You got like the S-foils, but the other half is like a giant engine just on one side. But I looked it up. Apparently there's no name for it. One of the artists, who I don't know if I call him a official source, but he referred to it as a T-wing. But anyways, there are 3 Jedi coming back to the academy. We have a human male, a human female, and a Quarren male. The Quarren, his name is Hennix, the human female's name is Vo, and the human male is Ty. Hennix wants them to go down to help, but Vo can't sense anyone down there in the flames. She can't even sense Luke Skywalker. But Ty senses someone familiar, Ben Solo. They go down after him, trying to figure out what happened, and Ben tells them that Luke turned on him and tried to kill him in his sleep. Vo doesn't think that Luke would ever do this, and Ben couldn't cause this destruction, but Ben flips on her and says he's stronger than all of them combined, even stronger than Luke when it came down to it. Ty tries to reason with him, but Ben just goes to leave. Hennix and Vo, obviously distraught by the destruction around them, draw their lightsabers to try and stop him, but Ben accuses them not even of being a Jedi. They are afraid of him. He doesn't want to fight, he just wants to keep going, but Vo dives in head first, and Ben catches her in the air with the Force and chucks her back into Hennix. A fight starts to break out, and burning wreckage flies through the air at the Jedi, and a piece of wood pierces Hennix in the gut. Ty comes up and tries to use a cool aspect of the Force we don't see very often, or I'm not sure, honestly, if this has been seen in canon, probably somewhere. But he goes to try and take the pain of Hennix away with the Force and absorb it in himself. But Hennix just wants to get back to the medbay on their ship, the Verity. Ben returns back to his ship and tells the protocol droid GG that they're going to be leaving. His ship's called the Grimtosh, and it looks pretty sweet. Has a really nice, interesting, angular cockpit that reminds me of his TIE silencer. And then the rear has like this really cool arc with a blue ion engine similar to the Millennium Falcon. But he flies out, and Ty and Hennix go into the medbay on their ship, trying to get him fixed up. But as they're there, they hear Vo fire up the ship to go chase after Kylo, or Ben at this point. Ben loops his ship around when he sees them in pursuit to charge them head on. He only fires once. He only has to fire once, and he shoots their giant engine on the side I described earlier and disables them, leaving them floating. The protocol droid GG tells him that they can jump to Hosnian Prime, of course, to see his mother Leia. But Ben hears a voice in his head telling him that the voice knew this would happen. He says Skywalker has always feared him, and we see the flashback of Ben and Luke, from Last Jedi, where he's attacking him in his hut. But when Ben emerges from the wreckage, it's not burning like we're used to being seen. It's just the temple. But he starts to walk towards it when a giant lightning storm appears and strikes the temple, not dissimilar to Yoda striking the tree on Octo. But Ben didn't cause this. He didn't want the destruction of the temple. This is not his fault. Back in the present, he tells GG that they're heading somewhere else. Back on the Verity, Ty tells Vo that Ben isn't a murderer, and if he wanted them dead, he would be, but he just shot their engine and not their cockpit. They needed to find him. Hennix shows them that Ben has a temple droid on the ship, and they can track him that way. They think about contacting Leia to warn her of what's happening, but what would they even tell her? Meanwhile, Ben arrives on this beautiful, mystical space station. The space station has a lush, verdant, kind of celestial body at the center it's not large like a planet, it's say like kind of asteroid-sized. And that lush center is surrounded by like a hex dome of transparent, like probably transparent steel. It's a clear hex dome. And around the object, there are several mechanical base station rings, one at the equator and two on around the poles. In addition, there's kind of a dark, evil-looking black roots and branches snaking through the rings out in the vacuum of space. Kylo lands in the station, and here to welcome him is none other than Snoke. Snoke is wearing these kind of ornate green robes. He has this almost golf cap looking leather hat. And kind of the most shocking is he has long brown hair. He's standing in this garden in front of kind of what appears to be similar to a Sith throne. And he hugs Ben and says he's pleased with him. This is obviously a very different side of Snoke than what we've seen in the past. But Ben tells him, look what Luke did to you. So, although he looks very different with his robes and his hair, his face is still scarred like we're used to. So I don't know if Ben is implying he believes that Luke attacked Snoke to make him look like this. But Ben says he killed Luke. However, Snoke is not exactly convinced. It's not going to be easy to kill Luke Skywalker. Snoke asks him, though, what Ben wants to do next now that he's free, and he says he's been thinking. He's been thinking about the Knights of Ren. And that is the end of issue 1. So, a pretty cool setup. We see that, Ben, although he has done some dark things, and he has dark thoughts in his mind, and obviously he's meeting with Snoke, who we of course know is up to no good, he isn't exactly fully turned yet. He hasn't really done anything. He, lashed out at Luke, but it was in self-defense in a way. He didn't destroy the temple. He only attacked his friends, the other Jedi, when they provoked him. So he is still, is still riding that line, still has good in him, definitely, but joining the Knights of Ren asking and inquiring about the Knights of Ren is probably not the best step. But it's a cool startup. If you are interested at all, I definitely check this out. At this rate, you might as well wait for the trade, and I think it's early to mid-May, assuming the coronavirus doesn't affect the production there and the publishing. But yet, a great arc I would recommend checking out. And we'll come back with issue 2 not tomorrow, next week. But with that, let's get into the important part of this episode. Not that Kylo Ren wasn't important. We're getting into the Clone Wars, Season 7, Episode 6, Deal, No Deal. We come back, and we are seeing Trace and Ahsoka fixing up the ship. Trace mentioned she must have gone to some academy up top to know so much about everything. And Ahsoka said she did. The Skywalker Academy. Trace, of course, would never be able to attend them, kind of looking at the inequality of the different levels of Coruscant. Not only can she not afford one, but there's not even an academy down in this level of the planet. She gives a little more of her backstory. They got the hangar after her parents split. Rafa got the shop from last episode after gambling, and she used it for her, her jobs. And Trace was able to get her ship after saving up for lots of different odd jobs and, a little help from Rafa. Something I'd like to, I'm trying to, as I do these episodes, knowing that most people are probably watching the Clone Wars, I'm going to try and do a little bit more analysis and less plot summary. But something I'm starting to notice is I like to think of the Martez sisters as two halves of a certain character, and that's Han Solo. They're kind of like Han Solo split and amplified. So you have the pure-hearted individual, the general of the rebellion, Han Solo, the pilot, the greater, the purely more good parts of Han Solo is, Trace. And you have Rafa, the smuggler, the gambler, the lowdown, the sly, two-timing character. That's definitely Rafa. So, I want everyone to take this, kind of going forward and even in reflection for the last episode, look at these two characters that way, and I think you're going to see a lot of different call-outs. So, again, Rafa got the shop like gambling. Han got his ship from gambling. But anyways, she says she has a name for her ship, and it's the Silver Angel.
Are you an angel?
What?
An angel. I heard the deep space pilots talk about them. They're the most beautiful creatures in the universe. They live on the moons of Viego, I think.
Ahsoka makes fun of her ship, but Trace says it's fine, and she also gave a name to Ahsoka's bike. Trash. It's trash. Ahsoka agrees to stay around with Trace for a little longer to help test the ship, and Rafa comes back to tell them that she's in a little bit of trouble. She hired a ship and a crew for a job, but they bailed on her, and now she needs Trace's help. She needs the best pilot around with the fastest ship. She tells Trace that they can't count on anyone except themselves, kind of trying to, put a little bit of doubt in Ahsoka. But again, we're getting super strong Han vibes. She is, already in trouble on some sort of smuggling job. No, well, not smuggling per se, a job, but come on. Rafa's very suspicious of Ahsoka and protective of her sister. Ahsoka tells Rafa that she doesn't have an angle. Her only angle is trying to keep them out of trouble. But you gotta think, what if Ahsoka brings them trouble? Similar to, think of like Mando in the village with the primitive people, or Anakin in the two villages across several seasons with primitive people. Jedi tend to bring problems with them, so she might be trying to protect the sisters, but in doing so, she could get them in a lot of trouble. But anyways, they go to take on this job Rafa gave them, so they head in the ship and take off topside. Trace flies up the center of the shaft and into, unfortunately, a military lane of traffic. They're being hailed, and Ahsoka tells them not to answer. Again, a very original trilogy move. TK-427, whatever. Admiral Yularen is the one hailing them. He says he's going to take her license, which of course Trace doesn't have one, and asks for her license number. The capital ship that they're heading towards just so happens, of course, to be Anakin's. And we see Anakin and Yularen talking on the bridge. Yularen looks like he is aged 20 years in the span of 3. But he was going to arrest them, but Anakin senses Ahsoka on the ship and decides to let them go by. A very touching moment there. Rafa whispers their destination to Trace, and they fly away. As they jump to hyperspace, Trace mentions she's never been in hyperspace, which, a little concerning if she's your pilot. And they have quite the bumpy ride until she realizes she forgot to disable the air brakes. When they come out of hyperspace, they're at a familiar destination, one again that Han Solo has been to before, Kessel. Rafa says they're here to pick up some medicine, but of course Ahsoka is not really happy that they're there. Kessel is to say it lightly, a troubled area with a troubled past. They come in on a different side of Kessel than what we normally see. It's a beautiful forest, and they meet an emissary of the king of the area. They go to the banquet to, just have each other's company, and Rafa asks about seeing the king, but she's told by the emissary that, they might meet him, but they have to first prove their worth. Trace stands up and blurts out about how fast her ship is and how they're going to handle it. Kind of childish. She sits down and Ahsoka asks about the type of cargo they'll be holding. And they're going to be, of course, this is Kessel, they're going to be taking unrefined spice. Although this could be made into medicine, it's spice, it's coming from Kessel. It's probably going to be made into drugs. It's definitely a valuable chemical that brings a lot of trouble. And, we are the spice den here. But Ahsoka mentions this possibility of drugs. The emissary just tells her that they're selling it for medicine production because of the war. Ahsoka tells the sisters the danger of running spice. Spice running ships often get attacked by pirates, unless you're my boy Poe Dameron. But they head out to get the cargo and leave the beautiful scenic part of Kessel and end up in a tale of two cities, a tale of, two halves of a planet in this awful smog-filled mining sector, what we're used to seeing in Solo, for instance. Trace is impressed by all the mining droids she sees as she's flying in, but as they get closer, it becomes apparent that they're not droids, they're slaves. Rafa says she doesn't think they're slaves because an operation this big would be shut down by the Republic, but obviously that's sadly not the case. They pick up the cargo and head to their next destination to drop it off, Obadiah, the homeworld of the Pike Syndicate. We saw Obadiah in the Pikes in Season 6 with the Sifo Dyas arc, and Ahsoka gets upset. Rafa goes at her, though, and they both argue back and forth about, what they should be doing with this spice. Ahsoka mentions that they're gangsters, and Trace gets concerned, asking if they're like Pintu from back on Coruscant, but they're much worse. They're galactically worse, and they're going to start, they'll take her ship, they'll take the two of them, and Trace has like a full-on panic attack and dumps the cargo while they're in hyperspace to prevent her ship from being taken. Again, a Han Solo move, although he'd be a little cooler under this situation. And then Rafa and Ahsoka go from arguing with each other to arguing with her. They had options when they had the spice, but now they have no options. The only option that they have, they are in debt to the Pikes at this point, and the only thing they could do, the only bargaining chip they have is the ship. But leave it to Ahsoka to have a plan to get them out of here. As they're approaching, she asks them to go over the plan, but the two sisters think it's an awful plan, but what choice do they have? Although she does have a few tricks up her sleeve, which they don't really know about yet. When they land, Rafa tells the Pike boss that it was an easy job and asks for the payment, but of course the mobster wants to inspect the cargo first. He doesn't trust anyone who isn't a Pike. Ahsoka uses a Jedi mind trick to have him send them away with their money. He gives her the credits and they say to go on their way. And as they're backing up the ramp trying to head out, one of the other Pikes says it's irregular and goes to check the cargo. When they don't give him the codes, he blasts open the crates and sees they're empty and calls in some patrol ships and engages a tractor beam to leave them stuck on Obadiah. So this is how the episode ends, but something weird, just thinking about it. Normally Jedi mind tricks, like, in, like, every other scenario I've seen them used, if someone uses a mind trick on, let's say, a group, like a stormtrooper, like, squad, the Jedi targets, like, specifically interacts with one of the stormtroopers. He'll say, like, go on, whatever, if they're asking to get by. But every other stormtrooper, like, plays along with it, kind of, like, implying that the mind trick works on the group. I don't know if this group is too large, but this is the only scenario I've ever seen where it works on one guy, but everyone else is like, wait a minute, what is going on? This is weird as hell. So, I don't know, maybe, group's too large, Ahsoka is not as, skilled with this method, I don't know, but just weird. I thought it was a good episode overall, and I'm starting to come around on the last episode we watched. I know it's a little negative on it at first. Was it slow? Yeah, but we needed a time to set up these new characters. I just hope we get a good payoff at the end of the arc. I still totally think that Rafa's going to get Trace killed, though. We're kind of already halfway with my prediction. They're on a job that Rafa took that's a little sketchy, and it's gone south. At this point, all we need to do is have Trace get shot or something, and I will have called it. But anyways, that's it for this episode. I hope you liked the Rise of Kylo Ren discussion as well as our Clone Wars discussion. If you want to hear anything more from me or just interact, you can check me out at SpicedInPod on Twitter and Instagram. Thank you as always to Gramble for our music, and may the Force be with you.